everybody. So today I want to share with you how to make the most delicious and easiest chicken noodle soup. I love to make soups throughout the winter, but this is probably the one that I get requested the most. So let's first talk about the broth. Now, I know a lot of people, they go to the store, they buy a dead chicken, they put it in a pot of water, they boil it for 47 hours, pick all the bones out and whatnot to make their broth. If that's what you want to do, have at it. For me, I think that packaged chicken broth is delicious. I think it's more flavorful than the dead chicken in the water. And quite frankly, by the time we doctor it up with everything and all the good things that we're putting in it, I think it's more flavorful. So some of the other things that we're going to put into our soup, we're going to put in carrots. Now make sure before you cut up the carrots, you peel them. I cut up a whole head of celery. I like to use every part of the celery, the leaves, the inside. It adds such a nice flavor to the soup, but I also like to see it floating around. We're going to start the soup with these vegetables with onions, and we're going to saute that with a little bit of garlic. And then we're also going to use spinach in this chicken noodle soup. I personally love the taste of spinach in chicken soup. You could use escarole, you could use kale, but for me, my preference is always using spinach. The other thing that we're going to add is we're going to put in 3 eggs. We're going to scramble these up and put them in there, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And the reason I do that is if you're familiar with Italian stracciatella soup or Chinese egg drop soup, there's ribbons of egg throughout those soups. And I think it adds such a depth of flavor. Plus, I also think it's really pretty. And then the other thing is that yesterday I went and bought a 3-pound rotisserie chicken, and I just pulled all the chicken off. So this is going to be our chicken. And then some of the spices that we're going to put in. So I like to use poultry seasoning. This is a nice combination of all different spices like marjoram and thyme and sage. And this is really just the same poultry season that we use at Thanksgiving on the turkey or in the stuffing. The other thing I'm going to add in is 2 bouillon cubes, and then I'm going to use a spoonful of better than bouillon chicken flavor. The last thing that we're going to add, or we're going to actually cook separately, I am going to use egg noodles. Now you can use egg noodles, you can use macaroni, you can use rice, but here's the trick. Do not put raw macaroni, raw noodles, raw rice into your soup, because all of that starch is going to make your soup muddy and heavy, and that's not what you want. To be honest with you, even after I cook the noodles, I don't put them in the pot of soup. What I do when I serve the soup is I put a handful of noodles in a bowl, and then I put the soup on top of it and heat it up. And it just makes the soups just so much lighter and delicious, and it allows the noodles to maintain their integrity. So let's get going with our chicken noodle soup. Okay, so first what we're going to do is we're going to add just a little bit of olive oil to a pan. And we just want very little just to coat the pan, because what we're going to do is we're going to saute those vegetables first to really get all of the flavor out of them. So we're going to add our onions. Our celery. And our carrots. And then we're going to add a big chunk of garlic in here as well. Maybe 2. And we're going to mix that all up. Now, this is a common mistake that a lot of people make. They make chicken noodle soup and they put in the vegetables raw without ever sauteing them and getting like that flavor out of them, that sweetness, and get them a little softer before you actually pour all the broth and everything in. So we're going to let this sweat out for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and continue to make our soup. Okay, so I sauteed the vegetables for about 5 to 8 minutes. I start putting in my broth. I put in 3 containers of 48 ounces of broth, and that may seem like a lot, but this soup really freezes well. So every single time that I make it, I always make extra so that I can freeze some and have it. You may also think like, wow, she put so many vegetables in that. But now look, I like to have a hearty soup. And look, now that we put all this broth in, it really doesn't seem like there's lots of vegetables. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to bring it almost to a boil, and then I'm going to show you our next steps. Okay, so this is almost to a boil. Actually, it is starting to boil. So I'm going to lower it just a little bit. But the reason that I wanted it to boil was, remember we talked about, well, first of all, before we do the eggs, I want to put in a big heaping spoonful of that better than bouillon. And the reason I want to put it in boiling water is because I really want it to dissolve. I'm also going to put in 2 bouillon cubes. And then lastly, it's really important that you have almost like a vigorous boil here when we put the eggs in, because we don't want the eggs to like go lump in and just sit there, because we're going to stir it really quick. So we've put in now the bouillon, but now I'm going to add those 3 eggs that I have now scrambled. And when you're putting these in, you have to keep you see what I'm doing with the spoon? I'm pushing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you can see now, and I'm just going to make sure that all the egg is out there, but you can see now all of these ribbons of the egg, and just makes it look so beautiful and adds such an amazing flavor to your soup. Okay, so now we're going to add in the spinach. And again, it looks like a lot of spinach, but once it shrinks all down, it's really not that much. But we're trying again to make a really nice hearty chicken noodle soup. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lower this, and I'm going to let it cook for like 20 minutes. Now, the last thing is I am not putting the chicken in until after I am almost 99% cooked. The soup is already cooked, because the chicken is already cooked. If we put the chicken in now, or if we put it in sooner, it's going to be dry and terrible. And so we want to keep the integrity and the juiciness of the rotisserie chicken, which is already cooked. So I'm going to cover this. I'm going to let this cook for like another 20 minutes so that the carrots and the celery and everything gets a little softer, and then all of these great flavors of the spinach and everything integrate with the soup. And then we'll add the chicken and go from there. Okay, so the soup has now been cooking for about 20 minutes, and the vegetables are still have a little bite to them. You don't want mushy vegetables, so I think they're perfect. So now I'm going to add in all of this chicken. Remember, this was a 3-pound rotisserie chicken that I bought yesterday and cut all up and put in the refrigerator. So I'm going to put that in there and chop that all up. Look how much soup we have. All right, so all I'm going to do now is let the chicken warm through. Then we're going to come back. We're going to plate this up with the noodles. Now remember, I made the noodles separately because I didn't want all the starch to be in the soup. And so when I made the noodles, after I took them out of the pot, and remember, we salt our water when we make noodles, macaroni, anything, we salted it. When I took it out, I actually poured some chicken broth over it so that they wouldn't stick together and they would stay nice. So now I have them separate. I am going to keep them separate. And then when we're going to come back and plate, I'm going to show you how it's all going to come together. We're going to put some Parmesan cheese on top, and then we're going to give it a go. Okay, so we are now ready to plate and eat our soup. So I'm going to take a little bit of the noodles, and I'm going to put it at the bottom of this plate. And then we're going to take our soup, a nice ladle of soup. Look at all that good stuff in there. Now think about how little time it took to make this delicious soup. Make sure there's enough broth in it. Look how beautiful. Look how beautiful this is. And then I always like a little Parmesan on my chicken noodle soup. So you can shave a little Parmesan cheese in there. And there you have it. Beautiful, easy chicken noodle soup. Let me know what you think. I'm Edie, and you've been cooking with Guys Girl.